this is not a competition to, build fighters or make pro fighters. This is a competition to help build a set of skill sets that the Army needs to instill in every soldier. A combative tournament is just a training tool that we utilize. It's similar to a live practical application. Just like we have NTC and we have all these other field exercises that we utilize in order to prepare for that end state mission of possibly deployment. I'm trying to take the best representatives of JBLM to Fort Benning, Georgia for the 2019 Lacerda Cup and represent 7th ID in that big all-Army tournament and, allow these soldiers the opportunity to go out there and display the talents of hand-to-hand combat that they have. We have ranges from professional fighters, amateur fighters to soldiers that have no skill set that come in and train and learn and go out there and compete. I emphasize to my competitors that hard work is always going to be talent, especially when talent doesn't work hard. So having a competition like that kind of brings out that fire back out of these individuals that have done some sort of training prior to their enlistment or even during and current in their enlistment. And you can never take away anybody who puts forth the effort and steps on those mats and competes in a tournament. Win or lose, every soldier that competes in any type of combative tournament are learning from that experience and they're adapting to it, they're building confidence, and that's the overall goal in the combative program, is to build a soldier's self-confidence so that they're not experiencing these things for the first time in the real world or downrange. And the best thing that I want to happen out of this tournament is to get fast participation from all the competitors that want to compete and having ultimate support from higher echelons across this installation to come out, watch these soldiers display the fruits of their labor and their skill sets for everybody to see that they have these skill sets within their ranks. The 2019 7th ID Bayonet Combatives Invitational is open to all unit organizations across Joint Base Lewis McChord. Every soldier should have the confidence knowing that they can put down their primary weapon system and utilize hand-to-hand combat in the event of CQB and still get the mission done.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, Facebook and YouTube, depending on where and when you are tuning into this broadcast. Welcome to this beautiful Sunday morning or afternoon. It is the Army's 245th birthday, and today we're going to celebrate it by talking to one of the leading Army Combatives Master Trainers, Staff Sergeant Aaron Rapoza. All right, we're also going to be talking to a little bit later in the day at about 3 p.m. Central Time, because it is Flag Day. We are going to be talking about the United States flag, the history thereof, and we're going to be talking with Jim Rodriguez, the founder and current president of the flag program based out of the DFW area in Texas. I'm your host, Staff Sergeant or Sergeant First Class Hernandez. I almost demoted myself there. And we'll be right back with Sergeant Rapoza. All right, so welcome back. Before I let Sergeant Rapoza speak and introduce himself and whatnot, I want to tell you a little bit more about him. So he is an Army Combatives Master Trainer. He has trained multiple branches for the U.S. and other countries. He is the current Washington State Lightweight Muay Thai champion, and he is stationed right now at Joint Base Lewis McChord, and he is all around a very seasoned and knowledgeable NCO, and there's a lot to learn from him. So without further ado, Staff Sergeant Rapoza, if you can please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your Army story, how you got from point A to point B.
Good morning from the West Coast, and good afternoon to those tuning in around the world. I'm Staff Sergeant Aaron Rapoza. Been in the Army 9 years, been an active Combatives Master Trainer / NCOIC of Combatives Operations at Joint Base Lewis McChord for about 7 years now. I joined the Army in 2011, where as my primary MOS is a 25 Quebec, which is a signalier. From there, I took a different career path. I fell in love with Army Combatives as I went through the basic combatives course and the tactical combatives course, and I continued on with my journey from there. I've been fortunate to be pretty much molded from the previous generation of combatives master trainers into the NCO and the leader that I am today within the combatives community.
Excellent. So I gotta tell you, I'm pretty excited to be speaking with you. All right. In doing my research and prep work and whatnot for this this live Q&A and interview, and kind of going behind the scenes with you, I have so many questions. Just so many questions. So what I want to get started with is I want to talk about the history of the Army Combatives program. Let's talk about where and how it started, and let's talk about where it's currently at and what we're looking at seeing hopefully in the future from the Army Combatives program. Are you able to kind of tell us a little bit about the history of the program itself?
Yeah, so Army Combatives has been around since 1852. They went through multiple different avenues of different types of training that Army soldiers were conducting during the time of wars, World War I and World War II. From there, in 1995, with the order of Lieutenant Colonel Stan McChrystal, it was reinvigorated. Matt Larson headed the committee to reinvigorate the current combatives program, which then became the modern Army Combatives program. They sent, they brought in and they sent multiple rangers around the world to emphasize the importance of different martial arts incorporated within the Army Combatives program. They took what they needed and what was relevant from these martial arts to incorporate it with weapon retention and being a soldier first. We all know that, the first thing that we're taught in basic training is how to fire a weapon system. So the primary objective with the Army Combatives program is teaching soldiers hand-to-hand combat and not being so comfortable utilizing lethal force, being able to transition smoothly within ranges, being able to control your ranges, being able to engage within a hostile enemy or insurgent, and being able to operate and maneuver in tight spaces using hand-to-hand combat first is the primary objective within the Army Combatives program. From there, we had our ups and downs with the program as far as the route that we wanted to take. In 2014, we transitioned from levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 to basic combatives course, which is a 40-hour block of instruction, your tactical combatives course, which is an 80-hour block of instruction, and now what we call our combatives master trainer course, which is 160 hours. Prior to that, we had levels 1, 2, and 3, which molded and emphasized the importance of experience and knowledge, getting soldiers to the element of being an actual instructor so that we are teaching and conducting combatives correctly within the SOP. A lot of, people outside of my pay grade felt that the courses were too long and it took soldiers away from training from their units. So they consolidated the old level 3 and level 4 and created the combatives master trainer course. And then lastly, in 2016 was our most current overhaul of the program, where there's some changes that were made within the TC to make training a lot more relevant to today's combat and emphasis of soldiers being able to utilize hand-to-hand combat while transitioning with their weapon system.
See, now I want to get some more insider knowledge with the Army Combatives program. So when I read the mission statement, I was very excited. So my background in combatives, right? I'm from a former branch, and over there we had our own martial arts program and whatnot. So I did a few belts on that side, but with the Army, I haven't experienced the greatness of the combatives program yet for the Army. But I am very, very intrigued and interested in the mission statement for the Army Combatives program. I'm going to pull it up here and I'll read it for you. It says the mission of the U.S. Army Combatives course is to lead, train leaders and soldiers in close quarters combatives in order to instill the warrior ethos and prepare soldiers to close with and defeat the enemy in hand-to-hand combat. I love it. How sweet and simple, right? And I love how it incorporates the warrior ethos, right? So from the combatives perspective, right? I know that when we had talked briefly before, we were talking about how important it is, and possibly even undervalued, the knowledge and training that comes from a combatives program in general, right? So we always consider the combat side of combatives, right, as we should, but with everything going on right now, right, with riots, with majority of our time not being in a weapons area or in a combat zone of that nature, can you explain to me, right, as somebody outside looking in, why should I learn combatives at all? Like, why should I learn any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, I can only speak from experience and from my perspective. Everybody has their different point of view and their different vision on the Army Combatives program. Of course, I'm an ambassador, so I'm going to speak highly of it. The only thing that I can touch base on with that specific topic is knowing and understanding that majority of your military career is spent unarmed. If we are not honing these skill sets within our arsenal, then that makes us that much more of a target, and that makes us less prepared for when we actually need these skill sets to be utilized. So as far as the combatives program, kind of back to the history, there are many forms of martial arts that are incorporated within the Army Combatives program, from Muay Thai, boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. These are different things that many people in today's society are training, whether it's in civilian gyms or whether it's at their local combatives programs that's on the installations that they are currently stationed at. So knowing and understanding the use of hand-to-hand combat, being comfortable in that environment, it always relates back to, we all know how to fire a weapon system. Whether we're good at firing a weapon system or not, that's on you. But at the same time, when you're put in a situation where you can't engage with your primary weapon system, or you can't transition to a sidearm or to an edged weapon, what are you going to do? Are you going to have the skill sets that you need to control range or close the distance to minimize the effectiveness of your enemy? And, being the person that you can conquer and ultimately finish the fight. That's our goal within the Army Combatives program, is knowing and understanding, controlling range, being able to close when we need to, being able to disengage when we need to get back to our primary weapon system. Those sort of things. And in today's society, especially, not being able to use lethal force, having the skill sets of the combatives program can help, build you as a person. Not only your confidence, your hard work, your discipline, your work ethic, all these different things are instilled within programs like this.
So how does the combatives program, how is it spread throughout the Army? Is it one of those like mandatory on every base kind of thing, or is it at the commander's discretion, or how prominent is the combatives program in the Army in general, would you say?
So I would say within the last maybe 3 to 4 years, a lot of Army combatives programs at installations are slowly dwindling down. Why they're dwindling down, that's based off of the person that's in charge and the person that's running these programs. Army combatives, if you have the credentials, can be modified and taught at the team level, squad level, platoon level, company level, whatever it may be. If you have the credentials to teach and certify both basic and tactical combatives courses, you can do things at your level. You don't have to work at a schoolhouse. You don't have to have all these amenities in order to properly train your team, your squad, your platoon, your company, whatever the case may be. So combatives should be taught regularly. It should be taught during PT time. It should be taught for sergeant's time training. But there's a lack of leadership that are actually conducting these training for their troops.
Yeah, I can understand what you're saying. So on the recruiting side, right? I know that I have personally processed and recruited future soldiers that turned soldiers, right? And they had a background already in mixed martial arts or in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or in Muay Thai and things of that nature. So they're coming into it with that knowledge. And to my surprise, again, this is before obviously we were able to bring you onto the program and whatnot. But I was very surprised and intrigued by how many high school students, right? How many fresh out of high school students are really familiar with any type of martial arts form, prior to joining the service. So I can only imagine that has a trickle effect, especially for I don't want to say for older dogs, but for more seasoned soldiers that may not have had that as a passion or may not have had that incorporated in their training often enough, etc. I can see how that might be a little intimidating for some of those individuals. So do you, I guess the question behind the question is the answer to the problem incorporating the combatives programs or making it maybe more mandatory or more encouraged for upper echelons, not necessarily officer up, but also mid-level NCO, new incoming NCOs. Would you say it's pretty important for them to probably go out there and learn something to that effect? That way they can teach their Joes and have that what do you call it? Confidence to be able to lead their soldiers?
Well, that's the underlying problem that we have in the Army right now, is a lot of our NCO corps are not combative certified, so it's easy for a non-commissioned officer to stand up and teach a PowerPoint, sergeant's time training, or teaching their soldiers all these different types of things, MOS specific curriculum. However, when a NCO is not combative certified or has not put forth the effort to advance their skill sets, in order for them to teach and in order for them to apply, is on a different level. And people don't realize that there's so much talent in the United States Army across the board. Some of the best NCOs, some of the best soldiers that I've ever trained with are active duty service members. We have so many black belts. We have so many high-level wrestlers. We have so many high-level strikers. We have so much combat athletes in the United States Army that, are hidden within our ranks for the specific reason of, maybe their career field or their job is taking time away from them being able to train and do the things that they once loved and adored. But they had to sacrifice that. And, the mission comes first for whatever their unit organizations they belong to. So being able to teach, being able to train individuals is one thing. Somebody like the great Command Sergeant Major retired Edgar Fuentes from Fort Hood told me, you don't have to be a combat athlete. You don't have to be a fighter to be a combatives instructor. Some of the best combatives instructors that I know are not fighters. But being able to know and understand based off of experience and training, the importance of hand-to-hand combat and applying it and teaching it will make you that much better of a combatives ambassador and helping reinforce the importance of the program in the Army.
So to put it in perspective for me, when did you start your mixed martial arts background in general? Like, did you have it before going into the Army?
So I knew how to fight prior to the Army. I never trained it as as hard and emphasize the importance on it. I joined the Army. I got into some early trouble within my career. And if it wasn't for Command Sergeant Major retired Patrick Acuna at Fort Hood, Texas, he sat me down and he said, "Do you want to go back to Hawaii and get out of the Army?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "I want to fight." He enabled me the opportunity, along with Sergeant First Class Tim Ferriss and Sergeant First Class Colton Smith, linked us together. I was fortunate to become, the lower totem pole of combatives instructors at the Fort Hood Combatives Training Facility on Fort Hood, Texas. From there, that's where my journey and my legacy began. And things have only flourished and advanced from there from then on. So, like I said, my career didn't kick off. My fight life and my lifestyle didn't kick off until Fort Hood. Some of the I would say majority of the combatives instructors at Fort Hood, Texas, were fighters and were high-level fighters. So when you're put in that environment, it becomes a lifestyle. If you don't know Sergeant First Class Colton Smith, he's Ranger Sapper, active duty service member that won the Ultimate Fighter 16 season. He was in the UFC. He was one of my bosses. Sergeant First Class Tim Ferriss, another professional fighter, black belt in jiu-jitsu. We had people like Dominic Brisbane, who was in the Air Force branch. That was an instructor. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Donald Kirchner, who is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, high-level wrestler out of Ohio. I had so much talent around me that enabled me to hone my skill set on a daily basis, and they challenged me. And not only in the fight world did they challenge me as a combatives instructor. I was able to sit there and watch these instructors for years teach the Army combative system and be able to pick from the cream of the crop the styles that I wanted to enforce within my own leadership and my own instructing. And majority of the instructors that were at Fort Hood are no longer in the Army today. They've retired or they've got medically retired. But those individuals are the ones that I have to give the most credit to, because if it wasn't for the leadership that I had there, if it wasn't for the mindset that they built within me, this journey would have ended when I left Fort Hood. People like Phil Platt, Bradley Cannon, these are all guys that helped mold me into the combatives instructor that I am today. And if it wasn't for them, my journey probably would have ended and I would be a signaleer right now, or I would be out the Army. But with their guidance, their help, and all the things that they have taught me over the years have kept that drive in me to continue the legacy of the combatives program. Because it's no matter where you go, there are going to be pros and cons to combatives. There are going to be people that like combatives. There are going to be those that don't like combatives, or they have a black eye towards combatives. And it's my job as the NCOIC here to make sure that this training is prioritized and emphasized within our ranks and within our unit organizations.
It's amazing what one, two, or even a handful of good quality leaders can really do in terms of affecting a soldier's life or a future NCO's life, and so on and so forth. That's amazing. One part of the reason that I was excited about having you on today, because it is the Army's 245th birthday, right? And I feel I'm a true believer that the Army is such a powerful and outstanding organization when adopted properly, right, and executed properly. So the Army itself is a great equalizer. right? It's very diverse. People from different backgrounds, different social classes, different financial situations, ages, all that kind of stuff. Regions of the world, even, right? With those that come over, and the Army, as going through, right, has a history of not really judging you by who you are, where you're from, but more along the lens of really who you are in terms of character, but also how you perform at your job and the attitude that you take towards the team and things of that nature. And it seems to me that Combatives is about the same thing. So I remember seeing your podcast interview with Stu and the Nun, right? And you talked about, or they talked about having to go up against officers and whatnot. I know I've seen some of your videos where you're training officers and things of that nature. What are some good lessons learned when it comes to being able to have that equalizing factor in the combatives world? Like what can a subordinate learn from a leader learn from a subordinate when it comes to being able to get into the ring, sparring, or an actual competition tournament, or whatever the case may be? What kind of leadership aspect can that entail?
It's all about professionalism. At the end of the day, anybody that has that personal courage to step on the mat and learn and be open-minded to learning a skill set that they may not be comfortable with, they get all the credit. I've trained, all ranks. I've trained both enlisted and officer side. So, being able to adapt and being able to overcome that type of environment, especially when you're not comfortable, is the most gratifying to me as a combatives instructor. But it's very important, and I understand that on the officer side, for them to be able to leave their positions, to come and conduct a combatives course is tough. It's very rare that I do get officers within my combatives courses. However, that's the people, and that's the echelon that we are trying to go after, right? Those are the ones that are in charge, or soon to be commanders, soon to be, higher echelons in the Army that can make change. So that's the environment, and that's the people that we are gearing towards as far as the importance of combatives training. So having them, come in, whether it's a PT session, bring them in, teach them some things, guide them in the direction of where you want to go with the combatives program. That's going to help your program, your training, and your career. So, it doesn't matter to me what rank you are. Majority of our population that we get are E4 and below. Very rarely do we get NCOs because, again, being able to miss a week or 2 weeks to conduct a military school, it is very hard for a unit to release their NCOs to come through. But, I personally feel that every NCO in the United States Army should be at least basic combative certified. Knowing the baseline and foundation of hand-to-hand combat will take you far. And being able to understand and utilize it within your organization and teach it, is what the importance and the key behind the training is built for.
I have a perspective that it's probably dealing a lot more with the fear of the unknown to a lot of individuals, right? Whether it be NCOs, unit leadership, things of that nature. Because I think a lot of the previous, I don't want to say previous generations, but the last decade or so, the emphasis on combatives and whatnot hasn't been as strongly pushed in the Army as it probably could have or should have. So I think it might be a little bit of a fear of the unknown of not wanting to fail in front of subordinates. Like you said, it takes a lot of guts to go out there and really put yourself out there.
I just think that the mindset in today's generation of NCOs and soldiers are different. a lot of NCOs are under the assumption that they don't need it because they're NCOs. You know what I mean? So a lot of NCOs don't do it, or a lot of NCOs or a lot of soldiers are like, you know, I'm not about that life. All right. But, you know, you're not about a lot of things in life. But what happens when you're actually going to need it? You know what I mean? Like, combatives can specifically change your life and change other people's lives. You know what I mean? You can be the determining factor of saving your own life and saving those around you. You know, and it's been proven. I mean, look at those airmen that were in Paris that de-escalated that weapon system from that person on the train. You know what I mean? They utilized combative techniques. You know what I mean? So it is not only relative in the Army, it's relative in society in general. And, you know, if you're not training, you are not getting better. You know, bottom line, in order to be ready, you have to stay ready. You have to train. You have to do every avenue of approach that you need to do in order to be properly prepared for any given moment, any given time. And, you know, it's the same with weapon systems in the Army. You know, how often are service members shooting their weapon in the Army? Maybe twice a year, if that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
if you're not honing that skill set on your own or learning on your own, you know what I mean, you're one step behind. And, you know, it goes for everything in life. If you're not doing physical fitness is another one. You know what I mean? You're never going to get kicked out of the Army from not being physically fit. You know, if you're physically fit, you can go very far in the Army, even if you don't know your job.
That is a true statement.
It's a very true statement. So being able to shoot, move, communicate, be physically fit, being able to know how to fight, you know, those are all key aspects in everyday life. So those that aren't enforcing those importance within their lifestyle, they should probably start to learn, because now, you know, look at today's society. I went to Cabela's to buy ammo to go shoot, you know, at the range, and everybody's buying ammo like people were buying toilet paper before COVID started. You know what I mean? And that just goes, now everybody is, you know, paranoid, you know, and doing all these things. Now that puts us more at risk, because weapon sales have gone up, ammo sales have gone up. So that means we got a lot of people that are out there with weapons that aren't skilled with weapon systems. You know what I mean? So if you're not honing your own skill sets to properly defend yourself and those that you love and whatnot, you know, you're putting yourself at risk.
So combatives is a perishable skill.
Very.
Is that right? What's that?
Very perishable skill.
So if I wanted to consider myself comfortably proficient, right? Let's say I've gone through some training and different courses through the Army or outside or what have you. About how many hours am I looking at putting in, right, outside of my day-to-day to remain, you know, muscle memory and feel comfortable enough to be, you know, deemed maybe proficient and being able to use it? What would you estimate there?
I mean, you can't really put a number on proficiency. You know what I mean? Every training session you go into, there's something to be learned. There's something to learn. There's something to get better at. If you're not training every day and you're not honing this skill set, that perishable skill can go away. It's just like shooting, right? Everybody knows how to shoot, but because we don't shoot that much in the Army, when it's time to go to the range and fire your weapon system and qualify, it takes service members a lot longer to qualify, because they have to reteach their body and their minds the proper mechanics of basic rifle marksmanship, because they do not do it very often. It's the same thing with hand-to-hand combat. If I am not training hand-to-hand combat, the muscle memory is going to be there, but then it also, all the different things play a big factor, you know. Mistakes get made. When mistakes get made, you know, you can find yourself in a detriment position. You can find yourself, you know, getting submitted. You can find yourself getting knocked out. You can, you know, so many different factors play a role in these skill set. It's not something that, and so I tell soldiers all the time, you can't go through a 40-hour block of instruction of basic combatives course and think that you're proficient in hand-to-hand combat. The basic combatives course teaches you a baseline and a foundation of ground fighting techniques, stand-up techniques, takedowns, being able to transition from your weapon system to close range, you know, to disengage and get back to your firing weapon. You know, all these different things. It teaches you the baseline of all of that. Now go and practice those things, you know. Continue doing jiu-jitsu, continue wrestling, continue doing striking. Those are the only ways that you get better at something, is continue to do it on a periodic basis. Whether it's going to your local combatives program installation, whether it's finding a martial arts gym in the civilian society, you know, whatever the case may be, grabbing, you know, a few partners and going to your MWR gym and rolling around on the mats. You know, put yourself in bad situations and bad positions and fight your way out. You know, that's the only way that you learn. There's two ways of learning that I've been taught in life. That's blunt force trauma and experience. That's the only two ways that you can learn in life, and that pertains to life in general. And if you don't understand what blunt force trauma and experience is, I'll use this as an example. Everybody knows how to ride a bicycle. Prior to riding a bicycle, you learned how to ride a bicycle with training wheels. That's building experience. Then you took the training wheels off and you started riding your bike and you crashed. That's blunt force trauma. Over time, experience and blunt force trauma is going to give you that avenue of approach.
Makes sense. So from a soldier or NCO perspective, right? Let's say that I go to your or a combatives training, right? I go through different programs at different hours for certifications, things of that nature, and I want to bring it to my unit, right? Not necessarily right now build a whole combatives program at my base or anything like that, but just for me and mine, right? For my platoon, for my squad, for, you know, whatever, something smaller scale. Does the combatives program right now incorporate some kind of train the trainer or some kind of you know, suggested you know, schedule to follow or something of that nature, kind of like how PRT does, for those who are certified, able to kind of put that knowledge into somebody else in a logical fashion?
Yes, the Army combative system is a train to trainer course. So
Okay.
Soldiers that graduate either basic combatives course or tactical combatives course are qualified to teach their unit organizations. That's what the emphasis is being able to train those future trainers to take back to their unit organizations and emphasize the importance of the training and conduct it within themselves. You do not need a combatives master trainer or a level 3 or a level 4 to be on site teaching combatives. The level 3s and the level 4s and the combatives master trainers are built in the Army to certify individuals. So if you have credentials, meaning you have graduated any of the Army combatives courses, you therefore are a trainer, and you are the one that should be continuing the lineage down at the unit organization level.
Okay, that makes sense. We're gonna dive more into this here in a second. We do have to take a small little break. We'll be back in about a minute or so. So you guys are just tuning in. We are talking with Staff Sergeant Aaron Rapoza. He is an Army Combatives Master Trainer and current Washington State Lightweight Muay Thai champion. So we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Gary Sinise. It's my honor to wish the United States Army a wonderful 245th birthday. Over the years, I've learned much about the sacrifices that you and your families make each and every day. These efforts become even more profound during this coronavirus pandemic. Your dedication and readiness during this time of adversity bolsters our Army, which is committed to fighting this deadly outbreak. Soldiers and civilians in the United States Army continue to embody the Army values as they maintain their solemn oath to serve and protect our nation. Your strength and sworn allegiance shape our future Army as we focus on modernization, readiness, and reform while maximizing the plans, programs, and budgets for that future. You represent the best America has to offer. So wherever you serve, thank you for your service to our nation and continued dedication in maintaining peace and stability throughout the world. Happy 245th birthday, United States Army.
25 body shots. Person on the wall, make sure you're exhaling. Go, make them work.
So that video, when I was prepping it, my son walks in and says, "Ooh, what are they doing? Why are they hitting him?" so that's conditioning, right? You guys you're using breathing, right, as part of the conditioning process and whatnot. Can you explain a little bit for those who have no idea what's going on during that last clip?
So that's my 2019 All Army team. Majority of that team won All Army as far as champions for the 2019 Lacerda Cup. That was in preparation for All Army. So a lot of the techniques and fundamentals that we incorporate within our train up are body hardening. A lot of people want to be fighters and they want to do things until it's time to do fighter things, and in fighting you get hit. So being able to realistically strengthen the body while utilizing breathing techniques is a conditioning thing and a tool that we utilize to help prepare the mind and the body for live action. Does it hurt a lot more in practice? Yes, because there's less adrenaline pumping through you in opposed to an actual combat fight. However, it's a good preparation tool that I utilize for my soldiers and my teams that I train to make it to the next level.
Sounds good. So I want to break to the comment section real quick. There's a Shelly Andy that says everybody's different, or everybody's different shape, different size, different skill level. You got to train for everything. How accurate is that statement?
That is Sergeant First Class Anderson. I know her very well. She was a United States Army combative school instructor at Fort Benning, Georgia. That is a very true statement. The techniques and fundamentals that we emphasize within the Army combative system is built for all aspects of life in general. It doesn't matter size and strength. I've seen some of these smallest individuals be able to utilize technique. It's not a matter of who's faster, who's stronger, who's bigger. These techniques and fundamentals will always supersede those things. So being technically proficient is a very key component to the Army combative system.
Okay. So I want to go to one more comment before we move on. So this one comes from Johannes Dawson. It says, the struggle is real when it comes to pitching combatives to a higher up. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the, I don't want to say obstacles, but maybe some of the roadblocks, some of the maybe walls, hesitations, or whatever it might be when it comes to implementing, building, or sustaining a combats program at any given unit or base from your experience?
So that's a very good question, and it's a topic that's brought up very, very frequently with me, as far as my journey and my success within Army Combatives. The first thing is knowing and understanding your audience, the people or the type of unit that you are trying to enforce combatives is a very key component. I have been fortunate to propose and articulate combatives programs for both sides of the spectrum, whether it's combat arms unit and whether it's a support unit. When I was at Fort Hood, we were an installation combatives program. So our audience was at the corps level, which is a division level, you know, and we had a schoolhouse and everything out there. So we conducted combatives training for the entire installation. When I went overseas to Korea, I had to pitch combatives to a support unit, which was very difficult for me. In the essence of a lot of mindset in the support don't feel that they need combatives training, for whatever reason it is. You know, and then I had great support when I came over here to Joint Base Lewis McChord. It was run at the division level, and then, you know, the division released the combatives program and said, we want our brigades to run their own combatives programs. And with the support of, at the time, Command Sergeant Major Molinax and Colonel Chung, they afforded me the opportunity to flourish and do what I do best, and build an empire and an asset that their organization has been very successful with. So knowing and understanding your audience, persistency, that's the very key thing, right? A lot of units don't want to build a combatives program because the first thing they're going to ask you is, how much is this going to cost me? You know, I've been fortunate wherever I've gone to build my own program off of, you know, equipment that I either went out and hustled for, and you know, units weren't utilizing, equipment that I have on my own personal side. You know, so finding resources, networking, and being able to propose and articulate a combatives program is going to benefit you when you are trying to build a combatives program. Secondly, is you need to make your combatives program an asset to the unit organization. All right. And what that means is, when you propose combative, what is your mission? What is your end state? What is your goal? And what do you have to offer are the main things that they want to hear. You know, if you are out there saying, you know, we're going to teach BCC and TCC and that's it. You know what I mean? Anybody can do that at company level.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're trying to build a combatives program, you know, what are you doing to emphasize the importance of making training a lot better for the unit organization? So I'm in a striker brigade combat team here. You know, I have infantrymen that come in and they do room clearing procedures. You know, I have units that come in and do weapon retentions. I have MPs that come in and do handcuffing procedures. You know what I mean? Detainee operations, search and seize, you know, stuff like that. These are different echelons of approach that you can bring to the attention of your command team that can help benefit. You know, command teams want to hear a multi-echelon type of program that you can emphasize and utilize within their organization. You know, Fort Hood, we taught SWAT teams, we taught KPD, we taught the Dutch Army. You know, we brought in DOD contractors that came in and they learned self-defense. You know what I mean? These are different topics that you can have built within your program that, you know, is relative to combatives. You're still teaching combatives techniques in all these different avenues, but you are making yourself that much more diverse and making yourself more of an asset to your organization. And taking no for an answer. That's it. Don't take no for an answer. I have never took no for an answer. I'm going to keep pushing for combatives. I'm going to keep doing it on my own. A lot of people want everything hand given to them. You know, everybody wants, you know, it's easy for you to go in and take over a program that already exists, but it's very hard for you to build something from ground up. And I've been on both sides of the fence. You know what I mean? I built my own combatives facility. I spent my Christmas 2018 building a combatives program for 2-2 SBCT, you know, and I'm talking taking down lockers, you know, taking a cough and wiping it out and building my own facility, doing all the paperwork, you know, setting yourself up for success. Everybody in the Army wants everything done. It's easy for a command team to look at a product and be like, this, and this is done because Staff Sergeant Rapoza did it, and opposed to Staff Sergeant Rapoza asking people to do it.
Right.
You know, so putting in the hard work, and being able to, you know, network. Like, that's where if you know people that are combatives master trainers, if you know people that have done it before, network. You know, it works smarter, not harder. That's the biggest thing is networking within the combatives community, finding out the different approaches on things. And lastly, don't turn your program to a martial arts school. That's the #1 no-go. A lot of combatives programs within the Army have turned their combatives programs into martial arts schools, and that is not going to be successful. And, you know, your focus on the Army combatives program is teaching Army combatives. If you are a fighter and you enjoy fighting, that's great. You do those things on your own time.
Makes
if
sense.
you are a combative instructor and you are running a program, your emphasis should be behind what can you do to make Army combatives better. And if you're not thinking like that, you probably should not be in the position that you're in, and you are not going to continue to build the Army combatives program that many legends prior to us have built and sustained for us to continue.
Makes sense. So it's the whole present a solution with a problem, not just the problem itself kind of thing, and
exactly.
And not veering away from what the purpose of the combatives program is supposed to be. Because I would assume that it probably does get very easily changed and modified to just a club of fighters or a specific genre of fighting. So,
and that's what the perception of the audience that we are trying to capitalize on have. And that's why combatives, you know, is changing, but combatives does have a black eye around the United States Army as a bunch of fighters wearing fight shorts and rash guards, you know, fighting all day. You know, that's why a lot of the installations are slowly getting rid of installation programs and having, you know, no longer BMM swatted service members teaching combatives out of a schoolhouse because of that specific reason.
So you're saying that, just so I understand that piece. So what the Army was running into as far as issues go is combatives organizations on base, right? They had their own facility, that kind of stuff, and soldiers were using it as more of a full-time, very lax atmosphere, kind of just go there to roll with people and practice and whatnot, but not really having the focus of what the core of combatives is about. Is that about right?
Yes.
Dang, okay. That's unfortunate. Only takes a handful of those to really change.
It goes back to the whole personal thing. You know, a lot of combative instructors are fighters. It's a lifestyle that we have you know, adopted. But even for me, somebody who's a combat athlete that competes in the civilian sector, I do not. Combatives comes first. You know, I mean, if I'm going to train or I'm going to do things, it's going to be on my child breaks. It's going to be after duty hours. You know what I mean? I'm going to find time to get my work in and my training in opposed to utilizing my program as an asset to make me better individually. I use my program to make soldiers better. I use my program to enforce the importance of combatives training. You know, make it an opportunity for organizations to come and utilize and get further training. So that's the biggest thing, is not utilizing the position and not utilizing the program as a personal benefit, but more so, what can you do to make the combatives program better? What can you do to enforce training for your unit organization? Because at the end of the day, they want to see product. Commanders want to see product. They want to see success. They want to see numbers. Who are you training? How many people are you training? They want to see these sorts of things. They do not care if you are a fighter or not. They don't care about your personal. They want to know if their asset and their production that they're putting into you as far as support is being utilized and, you know, conducted within their ranks in their organization.
That makes sense. So I would assume, as an outsider looking in, I would assume that it would be the ROI, right? The return on their investment would be very similar to boards, right? So you have soldier NCO boards, annual boards, all that kind of good stuff. Sergeant Audie Murphy, right? All that kind of good stuff. Morales. As they progress, it's helping them as a soldier, right? Because it forces learning the knowledge and that kind of stuff, and really pins specific questions to that soldier, right, or NCO, to really think about how they would handle certain situations. But it also looks good on the command, right? I don't want to say, for lack of a better phrase, right? Kind of like a showcase, show pony kind of status, right? The good reputation builds and so on and so forth. Is that mirrored on the combative side? Like, I would assume that if I was a unit commander, or I was in a unit that had a combatives program, and we went to competitions and all that kind of good stuff, I would only assume that it would be a positive light, would it not?
Oh, of course. I mean, my repertoire on JBLM, it's boosted because of the success that my competitors, have brought to light for my program. The first year I was here, we cleaned house. We won the Joint Base Lewis McCord post tournament, my 2-2 team. So that raised a lot of support and awareness for my program that I have here. Then we went to All Army in 2019, and I had 6 All Army champions out of 8 that I took there. That brought more awareness. And then this past year, we won again. 2-2 won the Joint Base Lewis McCord 7th Infantry Division post tournament. And we were in preparation for the 2020 Lacerda Cup, which fell through because of COVID. Right. But the spotlight's always going to be there. Your success that you have with competitions is always going to bring awareness and support. But at the end of the day, that's only one piece of the pie. Having competitors that win combatives tournaments is one thing. Yes, it's great for the unit organization. We bring memorabilia and trophies home. But that's 8 to 16 individuals out of your unit organization of 4,500 soldiers. Like, what am I doing as a NCOIC of combatives operations for 2-2? What am I doing to enforce and apply the importance of combatives to the rest of the ranks? And that's where my hard work and my hustle to train and certify these soldiers and get them affiliated with combatives, that's my due diligence back to the organization as far as their success.
That makes sense. So I have some stills right here, and tell me which battle was this? So I see you holding up on one side a sword, right, like a trophy piece. You're giving advice in the middle to one of your soldiers, and then on the right side, I believe that's who you reference as your protege, right, Jackson? Can you explain a little bit about these?
So me holding up the bayonet sword is the trophy that we won in January of this year. So we were 2020 champions for the installation combatives tournament. That's me and my team celebrating after receiving the trophy. That middle one is me coaching one of my 140 pounders, my lightweights, in his finals match, day 3, which is advanced rules. And then the third picture is I was able to referee the finals match for Jackson Specialist Fuamatu, because both of my competitors that made it to the finals were on my team, and I didn't want to coach any of them. I didn't want favoritism, so I refereed the match rather than coached one specific competitor. Specialist Fuamatu, he came up in the combatives world by me. I've mentored him. I've guided him. He was one of my instructors here at Joint Base Lewis McChord. He's no longer an instructor. However, I hope he's continuing his journey as a combat athlete and as an instructor wherever he goes. But yeah, that's memories that I've built with my team here at Joint Base Lewis McChord.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to take another short break, about 2 minutes. We're going to air a video of one of your competitions and whatnot for your soldiers, and then we'll go into a quick little Q&A / some more intimate perspective questions and whatnot. So if you're just joining us, don't go anywhere. We are speaking with Staff Sergeant Aaron Rapoza, and he is an Army Combatives Master Trainer currently stationed at JLBM over in Washington State, and current Washington State Lightweight Muay Thai champion. So we'll be back in a few minutes.
All right, red, blue. This is for the...
So here we have kicking off the 2019 Lancer Combatives Invitational. What we have here is a 2-day tournament that emphasizes on day 1 the importance of dominant body position using the standard rule set. These soldiers are only authorized ground fighting techniques as well as wrestling techniques. The semifinalists and the finalists will be utilizing the intermediate rule set, the addition of striking to the standard rules competition.
It's something that everybody should know, whether it's using it as defense, using it as an offensive, going down range. So I've done multiple fights in my past career, but I've never done the combatives tournament for the Army, so technically this was my first tournament since being in the Army. I was a competitor fighting for first and second place. It's fun because it's a whole nother level. It's not like just handing a ball off to somebody and you score a point. You kind of go back to the ways of just battle, see who's tougher. And it's just something I picked up over the years and enjoyed it.
Coming to the Modern Army Combatives program, it kind of gave me an outlet and enabled me to work on my skill and my talents outside of the Army, but be able to move and shoot and communicate while incorporating hand-to-hand combat, controlling range, weapons retention, and everything that we base within the program.
Push yourself, Archuleta, sprint. Push, 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 push. Finish strong, buddy. There we go.
Our motto is close the distance, gain dominant body position, and finish the fight. At the end of the day, that's what we want soldiers to instill coming here.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3. Champions!
All right, right on. All right, so a little bit older videos, but I wanted to showcase that to anybody watching on the stream and whatnot, and for future viewers as well. Really get an idea of of how that timeline has progressed for you and for Combatives as well. So now we're going to start entering into a little bit more of a individual perspective kind of segment and some Q&A. Okay. One thing I did want to give out there was there is a Tamara Lynn that says one hell of a leader. So don't know who that is to you, but good job.
That's Staff Sergeant Martinez. She was a combatives instructor, part of our team at Fort Hood for a small period of time. She also is a great leader. She was actually my team leader, per se, when I was a junior NCO and I was a specialist. So yes, she's also a recruiter in Texas. So
right on.
Thank you.
Right on. So from your perspective, right, you started out, I remember you saying that you were a specialist, I believe it was. You were able to have some great mentors, right? You progressed through your career, and you spent literally the majority of your career being a combatives instructor, right? How have you changed, or how has your perspective maybe changed from you back then to you now, right? What's the biggest, I guess, what's the biggest takeaway you've gotten so far?
That's a good one. You know, when I started my journey as a combatives instructor, you know, I was kind of thrown into the pot of, you know, the best of the best. You know, my boss was Sergeant First Class Tim Ferris, who was the director of the United States Army Combative School at Fort Benning, Georgia, for a long period of time. So he had high expectations and standards for us. I spent most of my beginning parts of my journey as a combative instructor, you know, cleaning toilets and, you know, doing maintenance within the training facility that we had at Fort Hood. And just through visual, through experience and sitting down, watching the other high-level combatives instructors that I was surrounded with, you know, I started getting my opportunity to be an assistant instructor and earning my way onto the mat and earning my ability to teach students. And, you know, it's like anything else in life, through repetition, through experience, you're going to build confidence. You know, back then I was a young private. You know, I've gotten into a lot of trouble in the Army. So I joined the Army as a PFC. I got demoted down to private, went all the way to specialist, got demoted back down to private. You know, so no matter what rank I was, you know, I was always surrounded with those that outranked me. And, you know, being able to see their leadership skills and be mentored by them has kind of built me into the leader that I am today. I've been, you know, afforded the opportunity, like I said, to flourish in the combatives community and the program and continue my legacy and build over the years. But all of that is through the trials and tribulations that I faced and where my foundation started, which was at Fort Hood, Texas. That's by far the best experience that I've had in the combatives community. And maybe it's a lot different being a subordinate than it is being the NCOIC now. I never thought that I never thought that I would be an NCOIC of combatives operations. But here I am today. And you know, it's a tough one, being the boss. It's a tough one, you know, running things for a majority of my time here at Joint Base Lewis McChord. I've been the NCOIC and the lead instructor. I've run operations by myself. You know, there was a very short period where I had 2 staff members helping me out, which kind of lifted the load off of me. But at the end of the day, you know, I enjoy and take all the risk and rewards by running a program by myself. So I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing soldiers come in and learning a skill set and being able to walk out with, you know, confidence, discipline, hard work, and everything that they've done to earn certificate and earn that skill set when they walk out. So it's been a long journey. It's been a long road, but I wouldn't ask for it any differently. I'm a strong believer in everything happens for a reason. My career path and my journey as a combative instructor is very different than many would say in the Army. You know, I get it from leadership all the time that say, hey, you know, you won't more than likely none become a sergeant first class, you know, staying in this type of environment, not knowing your job, not doing this. But, you know, I made 6 and 6.5, you know, I must be doing something right. And, you know, I'm going to continue to be the asset that I am for as long as that I can. And the moment I continue to get supporters and the, you know, that will help me and bring me on, the better for me. You know what I mean? I'm a strong believer that through success and through the things that I have done for the Combatives program and for, you know, installations and unit organizations, it's all about networking. And my future job will be out there somewhere. And, you know, there will be a commander or there will be a sergeant major that remembers who I am and what I've done. And that could be my next position and my next job. So I don't take criticism to those that say that don't know my job or I don't, you know, I have taken this career path. It only fuels me even more because I believe, you know, that through my journey and the things that I've been through, that I'm going to continue to hone the skill sets and make the program better. And one day, who knows, I may be the director of the United States Army Combatives Schoolhouse at Fort Benning, Georgia. You never know. That's always been a goal of mine. So we shall see.
True story. So I heard a couple of things in there that I want to get some clarification on. So one, it sounds like you were blessed enough to have a good set of leaders and mentors that showed you what right looked like, right? And we're able to really do what an NCO is supposed to do, right? Which is mentor and lead. So that's
you know, the biggest problem is that everybody thinks, you know, that we don't Army or that we're not put in an environment as far as you know, mentorship and leadership, but my leadership skills are based off of my leaders. I had some of the best leaders in the Army, you know what I mean? And still to this day, several of them are still in the military, and I still call for guidance and mentorship. You know, one of my biggest mentors are Sergeant First Class Colton Smith. He's in Virginia right now. I call him, you know, Sergeant First Tim Ferris, Sergeant First Class Brandon Sales. Like, these are all ambassadors of combatives that I still look to for guidance. You know what I mean? They are the leaders, and, you know, they continuously help me through the struggles that I may face as far as building a program or as far as continuing on teaching, you know what I mean? So, you know, there's always something to learn from. There's always somebody to learn from. So, you know, without the mentors and the leaders that I have in my circle, I wouldn't be where I am today, or I wouldn't be the person that I am.
So second part I wanted to clarify was you mentioned a couple of times, you know, not knowing your job, and for viewers, right? Especially when this is archived and people see it, you know, a month, 2 months, year from now, etc. To clarify, you're talking about your original Army MOS, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So can you kind of explain that to the current and future viewers, right? What do you mean by you know, not knowing your job as your original MOS, and how that's different from the combatives piece, or why, I guess?
Yeah. So I mean, by trade, I joined the Army as a 25 Quebec, which is a multi-channel operator / maintainer, satellites. I went through advanced individual training. You know, I learned the equipment and the things that I needed to know as far as specifically for my job. I've been to ALC, which is a primary job specific NCOS school. But I have not, you know, I have not been in my career field, meaning satellite and signal air field, since becoming a combatives instructor. And so what that means is, you know, my day to day is teaching soldiers hand-to-hand combat, rather than honing the skill sets that I joined the Army to be, as far as being a signaleer. And that's a career path that I've chosen to take, and I'm willing to take the risk and reward.
Right.
This is what I tell, you know, my students, because they all ask me, you know, everybody wants to follow in that path, and, you know, it's not for everybody. You know, I mean, there's a very, very, very few individuals that I know that have taken the same career path as mine, except, you know, a lot of them did do their job in the beginning, and in the latter part of their careers, they became an instructor, and they were able to finish out their careers as an instructor. I was just fortunate to be put under great leadership and, you know, flourish and be good at what I do. And I've continued to, you know, push it. It's not like I went from combative schoolhouse to combative schoolhouse to combative schoolhouse. Like when I got to career, they put me in a signal unit. You know, and from there, I proposed building a combatives program within that unit, which then caught wind and word from higher command teams, which made me become the peninsula-wide combatives master trainer, where I traveled up and down South Korea teaching and certifying soldiers.
Right.
Then I got to JBLM, and they put me in a striker brigade combat team that had no combatives program, and I was here as a signaleer, and I proposed it here. And with the great support, you know, I was able to build something, and it's been successful. But I believe personally and internally that, you know, my asset in the Army is teaching soldiers hand-to-hand combat. That's what I'm good at. You know, we can either work as a team to make that happen for organizations, or you can put me down as a signaleer and see what happens there. But that's not to deteriorate my leadership skills. Like, as a non-commissioned officer, I can still lead and direct troops. That's never the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, that's a huge that's a huge talking piece that I want to capture real quick, right? Because I've spoken with a lot of sergeants majors before. I've spoken with a lot of officers and lower enlisted and senior enlisted, etc. And everybody has their view on leadership, and then we have doctrine, and we have, you know, all that kind of good stuff. But I think it's a very important case to make that, just like, so I've been deployed when I was in infantry, incom, all that kind of good stuff, right? But I don't necessarily believe that you have to have experienced that in order to be a great leader in the military, right, or in the Army. No different than in the civilian world. You don't have to go through X, Y, and Z route to be a great leader in the civilian world, right? It boggles my mind that people would pair up, you know, the lack of leadership ability to a specific MOS if that wasn't, you see what I'm saying? Like in your situation.
I just think in general, the perspective of it, you know, is, you know how many service members in the United States Army that I know and have come across that are sergeant first classes that have never done their MOS before?
Right.
No, there's many. I know a lot of people within my career field. When I went to advanced leader course, majority of my classmates had never done their primary MOS. They were doing other things. Were they still signaleers? Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot different, but, you know, there's a lot of people in the Army that don't do their MOS.
Yeah.
You know,
and you gotta put your horses where they pull best.
Yeah, and, you know, I was fortunate enough to be good at something, and I'm gonna continue to ride it out. You know, I mean, I'm gonna continue to to emphasize the importance. I'm going to continue to push for it. I'm going to continue to do it. But that's not going to stop me from, you know, being a leader and being an NCO in the signal world if I need to go back to the signal world.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, when you sign on that dotted line for whatever career field you decide to sign for, you know, I mean, just know that that is what you are identified as. And there is no MOS for combatives. You know,
Right.
I mean, everybody in the Army will look at my SRB and they will see that I'm a signalier. So they will not look at and see that I'm a combative instructor. They will see that I'm a signalier.
Right. That makes sense. All right. So to go to a question from the field. Let's see. Here we go. Shelly Andy, since she's close by right here. How can we keep pushing combatives program to the higher up to stay funded and keep the installation programs open? I know you touched on this a little before, but anything extra other than being persistent and coming with a solution, right?
I mean, you got to start at the lowest level. You know what I mean? Especially if there's no actual program that's built within that organization. I mean, you have to start from ground up. If that means taking out a team and, you know, renting out your MWR gym and conducting a basic combatives course for your team, you know, I mean, slowly your repertoire is going to get up there and people are going to see. And once they see, you know, they're going to want to follow. So, you know, we all got to start somewhere. So if that means starting at the lower level and working your way up, you know what I mean, and building your credential and your repertoire, then from there, the successors will see that, hey, this is successful. Let's support and let's start funding and putting our efforts into building something for this organization.
Right on. So I have some questions I had collected as the event was posted on Facebook and all that kind of good stuff I'd like to get to. Let's see here. One question that was asked from a future soldier here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area was, do you have future aspirations for sponsorship, like getting into Bellator, One Fight Championship, etc.?
So like I touched base earlier, I'm at a point in my career and my life where combatives is number one. I enjoy fighting. I enjoy being a combat athlete. I enjoy competing because I believe without competition and without actually doing it and applying it, you know, the skill sets that you're honing will never be tested. You know, so for anybody that's out there that's training, or anybody out there that's going through classes and going through facilities and training, I mean, if you're not put in that actual live practical application of a fight, you'll never experience what it's like to be in that situation. I'm getting older. So, you know, my body, you know, weight cuts and all this other disciplinary things that we go through as combat athletes are taking a very huge toll. So as far as aspirations, I'm making it to the next level. I'm doing competition to stay active. I'm doing things that I need to build my repertoire for my post-Army goals, which is opening my own training facility in the civilian sector. So I'm doing things to build my resume.
I dig it. So to bounce off of that, I'm always fascinated and interested in a leader's mindset, right? And especially a competitor, especially a fighter. So I kind of want to get some of your behind the scenes mental aspect on this, right? So here are a few photos of some of your fights. I believe 2 are from one fight, the other one's from another Muay Thai fight. I'm curious as to what goes through your mind when you are mentally preparing for any given fight, any given scenario, things of that nature. Like how do you aside from hands-on practice and all that kind of good stuff, like how do you mentally prepare? Like what's going through your head as you're getting ready for a fight?
To be honest, that's why combat sports are so, ideal. Is it's only you in there. I mean, you don't have teammates. Yeah, you have coaches that are, guiding you from the cage or guiding you from the ropes, telling you what you should be doing. But at the end of the day, once that cage closes and locks, or once you're in that ring, it's you versus me. It's kill or be killed. And that's the mentality that I go into every competition with. It's you versus me. It's either I'm going to end up on top or I'm not. You know what I mean? And what focus and aspiration do I have to press forward? Having that willingness to close is the biggest thing. And this is all principles that I've learned through the Army Combatives program, both mindset and physical. So the mental and physical toughness, through the sacrifice and hard work and, disciplinary things that you go through fight camps, are all things that pay off. It's our motto from our Fort Hood team was, train hard, fight easy. We put in all the hours and all the efforts during train up, which is, anywhere between 6 to 10 weeks of preparation, doing 2 to 3 a days, being on diet, etc. In preparation to going to a 15-minute fight, or a 25-minute fight. And anything can happen on any given night. Some of the best have experienced defeat because it wasn't their night, or their body and their mind didn't operate the way it was supposed to. So we all go through those things, and we grow from it.
Okay. So think about your worst defeat, right? What did you learn from it?
So my worst defeat, I mean, I faced quite a few of them. I think what I've learned from it is confidence and, the mental aspect of fighting. I knew I was better than the person that I was, in there with. But, every time I've lost, I've gone through a very big mental depression, as far as thinking I'm not good enough, or I'm not going to be ready, or, and that's something that's hindered me through my competitive combat journey. But, my championship camp was the best camp that I had, in every aspect, from mental to confidence to diet, to health. It was just amazing, and it felt like everything fell into place, and that's why I became, victorious at the end of the night.
Right, makes sense. And I want to talk about your diet. Now it was briefly mentioned in Done in the Nun or Stew in the Nun, but I feel like it's a really interesting aspect, right? And I know you knew where I was going with this, but so plant-based back. I stole this off of your Instagram, right? Now I am not opposed to anything plant-based. As a matter of fact, my wife and I have been experimenting these last couple of weeks with going mostly plant-based, not 1,000% yet, but I'll wean off a little bit. But I want to get your mentality when it comes to diet, when it comes to all that. One, how important of a role does it play for you? And two, how do you incorporate it? Do you cycle it through? Do you stay consistent with one type of style of diet, or how does that go with you?
Yeah, so I've done many different diets. When I was at Fort Hood and I was competing, we did paleo-based. We had nutritionists. So our first class, Colton Smith, is one of our top nutritionists that helps us get through our camps and what we should be eating, how we should be cutting, what types of vitamins we should be taking, just the whole nine. And prior to my championship fight, I was about 7 weeks out. and weight just wasn't coming off. I was sitting at 186 pounds, and I fight at 155. And that's when Game Changers kind of went viral, and everybody was talking about it. So I watched it on Netflix, you know, and I was intrigued by it. And I have a couple friends that are plant-based, and their guidance to me was, don't go cold turkey and don't go full force off the rip, kind of ease your way into it. And I did the complete opposite. I didn't have time to wait around and go through the proper process. So the very next day, I threw away everything out of my refrigerator that was not plant-based, and I went to the store and spent about, you know, $300 to $400 on plant-based goods, and I started my journey as that. Now I will admit that when I am in fight camps, I am 100% plant-based. When I am not in fight camps, I am not 100% plant-based. Do I still do plant-based? Yes. Majority of my Monday through Friday is plant-based meals. And then, you know, Saturday, Sundays, I'll go and, you know, engorge on some other things. But yeah, I went plant-based for my championship camp. And it worked miracles for me. I've been fighting, and I've been, you know, doing day-to-day operations in the Army for the last two to 3 years on a torn ACL. I tore my ACL in Korea teaching combatives and grappling with some students, and I never got it fixed. And, you know, I've gone through the aches and the pains and whatnot. When I was plant-based, I didn't have any inflammation. I felt healthy waking up every day. I'm not an athlete that takes supplements, so I don't take protein. I don't take any of that stuff. And I just felt a lot more energized. And, you know, my experience through it is my experience. It was the best feeling that I ever had, health-wise and recovery-wise. But I will tell this to everybody, like, every diet's built for everybody different. You know what I mean? I can't tell you that vegan is the way to go.
Right.
I can't tell you, you know, I can tell you the pros and cons of my experience, but I cannot say that, you know, you should go vegan. It works for everybody because everybody's body is different. Everybody, you know, adapts differently.
What you definitely should not do is be closed-minded to anything extra, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't knock it before you try it or experiment with it. So going on to another question that someone had thrown out before. Advice for younger soldiers or future soldiers that are interested in doing combatives or MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, etc., but are on the fence when it comes to starting out. I'm assuming because they don't have any experience prior to kind of stuff. What's your advice for them when it comes to them thinking about doing combatives?
Like I said earlier, I think going through an actual basic combatives course will help you make that decision. It's a good way to build a foundation of every aspect. And then from there on, you know, you have to advance your training. If you feel that martial arts or you feel that combat sports is something that you're interested in, then, you know, after you do combatives, you know, most combatives installations or most combatives programs on installations, you know, they'll hold open mats during lunch, or they'll hold, you know, open mats after duty hours that will allow you to come in and get better with your skill sets. But, you know, a lot of them also train and teach at civilian schoolhouses. So, you know, getting yourself affiliated with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym or a striking gym or, you know, a multifaceted mixed martial arts gym will be in your best interest. But I think building your base and foundation and seeing what it's like and understanding the baseline of the basic combatives course is your first route that you should take.
All right, right on. Thank you. So how do you balance being a soldier, your personal life, family, etc., and the passion for combatives?
I will tell you this. First and foremost, my journey would not be where it is today if it wasn't for the mother to my children. She has been my day one supporter, and she has helped me through, everything that I've gone through, both ups and downs, as far as being a combat athlete, being a combatives instructor, being a soldier, NCO leader. So, having a good support system is number one. Number two, it's become my lifestyle. It's become my kids' lifestyle. All my kids enjoy it. They've been around it their entire life. We eat, sleep, and breathe it. That's something that we do. My kids, would sit on the side and watch me teach, or sit on the side and watch me do Muay Thai practice, or watch me do jiu-jitsu practice at Fort Hood. And, I don't even have to teach my sons what to do. Just off of visual learning, they've found a love and passion for combat sports. So all my sons, they all enjoy, the aspect of fighting. They all go to my gym here at JBLM and they train with me every day. So being able to balance, it's sacrifice. I've made a lot of sacrifices in my life. I don't go out and party. I don't go out and do things that a normal soldier would do on their off time. It's either I'm spending time with my sons, or I'm, training, or, I'm teaching. So that's been my lifestyle for probably the past 7 years, even in Korea. If I wasn't teaching combatives, I was teaching, Muay Thai classes in the evening to dependents, or, DOD contractors or service members. So I've just continued that lifestyle, and it's where I'm at today. But I mean, it really is hard, if it wasn't for my children's mother and the sacrifice that she has made over the years, from me traveling to London to teach the Air Force combatives, to me traveling all around the world and, competing and stuff like that. If I didn't have the support system from her, then I would not be able to do what I do and do it well. So she's kind of been the backbone and the stronghold behind, making sure that I'm able to continue my legacy and journey as a combatives instructor, as well as, compete and do the things that I want to do, but still, emphasize the importance of my kids and that they come first.
It really does go to show behind every great man is a greater woman, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, couple last couple questions. Let's see. We had somebody ask, if you could train with any legend of any martial arts, who would it be and why?
I don't know. I mean, I've trained with some high-level athletes already. I've trained with Tim Kennedy. I've trained with Colton Smith. I've trained with, guys that fight in Glory, Bellator. So I've trained with a lot of people. I've fortunate to have Hoist Gracie come down to Fort Hood and train with us. Johnny Hendricks, there's been a list of them, but as far as who I'd want to train with, I mean, anybody, any training partner that makes me better is worth training with.
Nice. Well said. Well said.
Not off the top of my head.
That's no worries. So one last question that I thought was pretty interesting, and I know you've covered it before, but I like to reemphasize it just because I believe in the teachings of the Combatives program. So I'm a 42 Alpha. Do I really need to learn this?
Yes. The reason why I say yes is not only do we have to fight the battles of our enemies overseas, but you never know what might take place, in civilian society or installation. As bad as it may seem and hear, I was there for both shootings on Fort Hood, and that involved somebody of our own. So it doesn't matter what your career field is. It doesn't matter what your job title is. It doesn't matter about anything. What matters the most is knowing and understanding the skill set. It's kind of like one of those things like a construction worker building a house. Do I really need this screwdriver? Probably not. Is it in my tool bag? Yes. Do I know how to use it? Yes. Right. So we pretty much give you a handful of tools that you can utilize in every predicament that you may encounter. It's up to you to utilize what tools you want to utilize. So, every person in the United States Army should know the basics of Army combatives.
1000% agree. So thank you very much. We are rounding out toward the end of our time. We need to make some room for the flag program's founder, Jim Rodriguez, coming up at 3 o'clock on Central Time. And he will be talking about the history of the United States flag, some interesting things. I promise you there are going to be some questions and answers that you do not know just yet. Staff Sergeant Aaron Rapoza, thank you so much for spending your own personal time getting combatives programs up and running in different bases. Thank you so much for spending your own personal time here with me today on a beautiful Sunday morning or afternoon, right, depending on which one of us is where. And happy birthday to you and yours for the Army's 245th birthday. Please don't go anywhere. Stay here backstage with me through the end of the outro. That way I can get with you one-on-one after this whole thing's over, and I'll give you the last word. Anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I want to thank you and your unit organization for allowing me the opportunity to come on and be a part of your guys' program and talk about the importance of the Army Combatives program. Thank you for all the viewers out there that tuned in and supported through this process. The biggest thing that you can take away from this is if you're a future soldier looking to join the United States Army, is knowing and understand what career field that you are destined to be in, taking your skill sets prior to the military and utilizing them in the military as far as an asset, and getting yourself familiarized with hand-to-hand combat. At the end of the day, we all need that perishable skill set, and we should all know it. And then lastly, thank you for all my supporters that continue to support my journey as a combatives instructor. It's not over yet. Stay tuned. There's more to come. And we're going to continue to build the legacy and continue to enforce the importance of Army combatives worldwide. Thank you guys all for being in.
Perfect. I hope it really works out and it gets much more traction. So again, thank you, Staff Sergeant Rapoza. Thank you, everybody who's been watching. This has been Behind the Scenes with Staff Sergeant Aaron Rapoza, Army Master Combatives Trainer, Army Combative Masters Trainer. You know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, happy birthday, and you guys have a great Sunday.